So, I want to talk to you about what might be, in my personal opinion, the worst movie I will ever love. Because, my God, do I love 1994's Street Fighter. Look, I don't really know much about the video games, the Street Fighter video games, other than the most basic knowledge that I'd say most gamers have. But I do know uh, the movie was more faithful than some adaptations, and less faithful than others. It remains a bonkers movie, which which by all means should be should be bad, like really bad. But it is also somehow amazing. Um, it is the swan song of the actor Raul Julia, who in this portrays the mad warlord M. Bison, uh, though he would argue that he is but a misunderstood visionary. Oh well. Uh, so I recently just went on a marathon of watching all these old video game movies, um, most of which are not looked upon in a favorable light. And Street Fighter was on top of the list, solely by virtue of Raul Julia being in it. Actually, his performance was wonderfully over the top. Uh, Perhaps the only way the character could work, but still, he delivers his lines with such an evil glee, right? It's hard not to laugh at everything he says, and really, everyone plays their part rather well, sort of knowing exactly what is needed to keep this bad movie from being bad. Interestingly enough, Jean Claude Van Damme is in it as Giles for some reason. Uh, and you've got a young Ming Na Wen as Chun Li. Um, somehow they're all able to make it work as a sort of comedy. Really, it's meant to be campy on purpose. I think. I hope. It's meant to be weird and not make a lot of sense. Um, I don't know this for a fact, but I don't know if it matters either way because it still works. Um, I suppose that's something I want to talk about is how you don't have to play by the rules to tell an entertaining story. You don't necessarily have to do things right, nor does your story actually have to be good by the most basic standards of goodness. Um, it can just be, you know. Because the story itself is that you have the evil General Bison has set himself up as a Colonel Kurtz figure out in the jungle, and he's trying to take over the world. He's enforcing slave labor, arms trafficking, the works. He's performing evil science experiments, raiding villages, um, and the tough American Giles is brought in to stop him, along with a bunch of other military sorts from across the world. Are you with me so far? Because meanwhile, we're introduced to who I believe to be the main characters of the games, at least. And that is Ryu and Kin, who are your typical martial artist types. So I watched the movie with my father, and he made the observation that these two characters and all the characters who seem to follow the same mold, right? You have these two throughout that sort of era of games and movies, and he said that they're they're basically just kind of Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, basically. Which I guess if you think about it in terms of you've got this consummate Chinese martial artist, right? The master of kung fu or whatever Asian martial art you choose, really. uh, and you've got this wisecracking American fighter, a bit more scrappy, a bit less noble. Um, I can sort of see where his observation was rooted in there, and I can sort of see how a game company at the time would take those two molds and just stamp them on characters, especially if you're making a fighting game. You take the popular, actors of the time, and then you just do a version of them, right? And these two characters, they obviously have become greater than the sum of their parts, right? I was aware of them without knowing much about anything else regarding Street Fighter. And in the movie, they are Ryu and Ken turn out to be working the underground. They're dealing with these smugglers and criminals and pit fighters and getting up to no good. But they're actually cheating the other criminals. So they're not actually advantaging the crime lords who work for M. Bison. They're just taking their money and then giving them false products. But after an unfortunate series of events and an even worse series of misunderstandings, they wind up being recruited by Giles and co. as double agents, looking to infiltrate Bison's operation and bring him down from within. But even while all that's going on, Chun-Li, the reporter, turns out to be, you guessed it, a secret martial artist with a vendetta against Bison. She's trying to sneak around. Her and her friends, a sumo wrestler and a boxer, and she's trying to sabotage Bison's arms dealing and science experiments and all that, and then finally get the chance to kill him. Because he attacked her village once and killed her father, I think, and she of course wants revenge for that. Um, that's the story. That's the complicated, crazy ass story, and it gets even crazier as the movie goes on. Giles fakes his own death once, and there's a whole aquatic assault on Bison's lair, this converted temple, uh, and it's just him standing there shouting things about preparing the missiles and the defense procedures, and it's freaking hilarious. I don't know what it is. As I said, while all the actors do an amazing job selling this ridiculous movie, Raul Julia makes the movie for me. He really elevates it. The way he delivers those lines, and for that matter, the way the lines are written, the way they've designed them for him it just screams brilliant, mad. They must have done it on purpose for how corny it sounds, and at the same time wonderful. Uh, I can quote some of those lines off the top of my head at any given moment. Really, they're just that good and delivered so perfectly by Raul Julia. And by good, I mean bad, which in this instance it is good. Um, why must they call me a warlord? And mad? All I wanted to do was create the perfect genetic soldier. Not for evil, not for power, but for good. You see what I mean? Isn't that just the best bad line you've ever heard? It's so enjoyable to hear because it's not serious, and I don't think it's supposed to be taken seriously. It's meant to have this cartoon supervillain effect to it. Um, or better yet, in his final fight with Giles, where Bison reveals that he has gauntlets that shoot lightning and allow him to levitate like some sort of evil Superman. Yeah, you heard me. He says, "Keep your old god. In fact, now might be a good time to pray to him. For I beheld Satan as he fell from heaven like lightning." Uh, and then the whole place explodes after a whole bunch of stuff. Because of course it does. Because of course the entire place explodes. I'm telling you, this movie is it's all kinds of good, of wonderful, while being bad. It's not good, except for the fact that it's great. I can't hype up this bad movie enough. Uh, it was amazing to behold, and I'm not even done with the bad video game movies that I've seen. Seriously, I've got more to talk about. Um, some that are actually not that bad, and others that fail to live up to the hype even of Street Fighter's nebulous standard of so bad that it's good, right? Um, and that is what it is. Uh, I'd like to encourage more movies to be like it, actually. More people, actors, directors, or whoever, need to make the decision that instead of doubling down when they realize their movie is bad, I think they need to lean into it. They need to accept the bad and make it campy and fun and a glorious nightmare to behold. Yeah, um, Street Fighter. It might be the best bad movie ever made, in my humble opinion. Uh, Thank you, Raul Julia, for the wonderfully weird performance. It's a crying shame you couldn't have done more. For you, the day bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. For me, it was Tuesday. Yeah.